بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ونور قلوبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. نوينا تعلم وتعليم. Can you hear me? I don't see my mic moving. Can you hear? Okay. Because I don't see the Zoom punya mic tak ada gerak-gerak. There's no like black thing that moves. I was paranoid why the mic is not moving. Okay, never mind lah. As long as you can hear lah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. نوينا تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير نفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله مرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصافي الهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصافي الهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصافي الهني يا وهاب يا غني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين آمين آمين. Alhamdulillah. Let's continue our class. Right, so we are on the arkan of the prayer, or the furud, right? And they're all interchangeable as we have gone through in Safinatun Najah, right? The word furud, arkan, wajibat, they're all interchangeable except in the case of Hajj and Umrah. Right? Whereas for all other forms of worship, furud, arkan, wajibat, they all mean the same thing. Right? They all mean the integrals of that particular act of worship. Right? So we have furud, and here it is mentioned to be 13. And last week I put my mark that we have come to the third one, which is qiyam fil fardi lil qadir, right? Which is to stand, right? The one who is able to stand, the one who is able to stand, right? For what is compulsory for the one who is able. So standing in obligatory prayer for the one who is capable, and it is a condition to strengthen the backbones. However, if he is not capable, he has to stand slightly, then he's able to stand, he's allowed to stand slightly bent. Right? Basically, he needs to stand up as straight as he can. If he's not able, right, to stand at all, right? So if someone is not able to stand at all, then he may sit and perform the bowing with his brows to the front level of his both knees. It means he's going to bend, right? So I'm going to describe this, right? So with the prayer, the first condition, or not the first condition, but the first integral of the prayer is to stand and pray. Right. So for as long as a person is able to stand, they must stand. Right. So someone, for example, who has like a sprained ankle, right? The sprained ankle does not technically prevent you from standing. You can actually stand with a sprained ankle, right? If you have like a sprained toe, right, for example, like a sprained toe does not actually prevent you from standing. You can actually stand, right? So something that might prevent you from standing, that would be like an altogether body illness. Right? So for example, very, very high fever, so sick, unable to stand. Right? The moment you stand, you faint. Right? So the body is unable to take standing. That happened to the Prophet ﷺ towards the end of his life when he fell very sick. He was unable to stand because the fever was so high. All right, that's one situation. Right, somebody who's giddy, very, very like nauseous or whatsoever. Whenever standing it makes it difficult for that person to stand. Right, or someone who has very weak legs, right, or they're very weak joints or very weak legs, they're unable to stand. Right, for these individuals. Right, so specifically, right, if you're able to stand, then you must stand. Right, so basically, if you have an injury somehow or other, right, in your injury, right, so what your injury prevents you from doing, then only in these places you actually have an excuse, right, to not perform these things. Right, so for example, like a sprained ankle, right, maybe the only part that you're not able to do is to sit back onto your ankles. right? Because of a sprained ankle. But for sprained ankle, can you stand? Yeah, you can. Can you ruku'? Yeah, you can. Can you sujood? Yeah, you can actually sujood also with a sprained ankle. Maybe you can't prop your feet up, right? As you the conditions of sujood, then don't do so, right? Can you sit back on your ankles? Oh no, you can't. It's gonna be very painful. So you can stretch out your legs. You can actually stretch out your legs and sit down on your seats, on your bottom. You can do that. So basically, it goes back to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Whatever I have commanded you to do, then do of it to the best of your ability. And that is the ruling that we know, a general ruling from our Prophet ﷺ. Whatever I have commanded you to do, then do it to the best of your ability. Right? So to the best of your ability. All right. So if he's not capable, he may sit and then performing the bowing to his brows in front of his level of his both knees. Okay. If he is able to sit on the ground, right, then that is better for him to do, right, because that would enable him to perform the sujood. Right, so if you can sit on the ground, so if you say, for example, someone can't stand because they get dizzy, their legs are not strong enough to hold them standing, right? They can't stand, right? So, but they can sit and they can sujood, right? So, okay, sit on the ground, and there is an ability for this person to sujood. Okay, what if a person says, okay, you know what, I can stand, right, and I can sujood, I can do all the movements of the prayer, but I can't go from sujood to standing. If I go down to sujood, I feel like an old person. If I go down to sujood, I cannot stand back up. Right? It's without much help and much struggle. Right? I can't actually get back up on my feet and stand. Okay? So this person says, okay, so how should I pray? Should I pray seated on the ground? Right? And then perform my sujoods well, but I cannot get back standing up? Or should I pray seated on a chair? Whereby on a chair, I'm not going to perform my sujoods properly, but then I can stand up. From the chair, I can go back and I can stand up from the chair. But from the ground, not possible. I cannot do that. So you understand the situation, eh? So this person is like a choice. Like, do I go down to the ground, or do I sit on a chair? Which is better? Right? The answer is they have a choice. They actually have a choice. Right? So which is easier for this person to do? Right? So if someone were to say, okay, once I go down, I can come back up. So we say, okay, to the person, okay, you begin your prayer standing. All right, stand as usual. Ruku', i'tidal, sujud as usual. Sit down after sujud and then sujud again. Okay, now you're unable to stand back up, right? Because the person says, my knees are very weak, very old, cannot stand up, need a lot of help. Okay, so she can't stand back up after the second sujud. Okay, sit. Right, sit and continue praying in that way. That means for the rest of the prayer, you're on the ground. For the rest of the prayer, you're on the ground because you're unable to stand up. Okay, that is for someone who has no chair or does not want to actually use a chair. So she sits in the standing, she folds her arms, she reads Fatiha. When she wants to ruku', she bends forward until her head goes beyond her knees. Like her head goes beyond her knees because she's able to do sujood. Because she's on the ground, right? She's able to do sujood. So ruku' is the head just level of the knees or a bit beyond the knees. Then sujud is a full sujud onto the ground because she's on the ground. Okay, let's say she says, okay, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go onto the ground at all. But I want to do my standings. Okay, so she has a chair. She brings a chair, right? So she begins by standing. Don't begin on the chair. Begin by standing. So she stands, Allahu Akbar, and she begins by standing. Okay, and then ruku' as usual, ruku'. I'tidal as usual, i'tidal. Okay, now sujud. Okay, so sujood, she's going to sit on her chair and she's going to go bend forward as far as she can go. Okay, that is her sujood. As far as she can go, she's going to bend forward. And then sit back up on the chair, right? Sit down and then sujood. Okay, next rakaat. Second rakaat, if she can stand from her chair, then she needs to stand from her chair. She must stand. Right? So if she's from a chair, she can actually stand up from a chair. Like, even though needs to do it, like you hold on to like the sides or like a tongkat, like a stick or whatever to push herself up, then do so, right? To push herself up and stand and perform a next raka'at. Right? So the only thing that is deficient for her will be her sujud. Okay, if let's say she says, after I sit in the chair, I cannot stand up again, cannot. Right? So even from chair also, I cannot stand up. I'm stuck on the chair. Okay, Right, so then after she bends forward, she comes up for the next raka'at, sit, right, stay seated in the chair, do her Fatiha, then her ruku' will be up till where her eyebrows go past her knees, right, and then i'tidal, and then sujud again, you go as far as you can, all right, and these are the ways by which you can pray, seated down, right, for wajib, you must stand up as much as you need to perform the parts of the prayer to the best of your ability. For sunnah, you may perform the prayer seated down, even if you have no reason for doing so. You may do so, right? You may do so even if you have no reason for doing so. All right. Okay. The most preferred is to align his brows in the place of prostration, right? To the place of prostration. It means go as far as possible to the place of prostration. If you can't actually go down, and prostrate. And both, that is the minimal, that is the and the minimal bowing, and is the most preferred. Mentioned are based on comparing with the bowing of one who is capable standing and aligning between his brows and the place of prostration. So the best thing to do is to bend, is well afdal and yuhaziya mawdi'a sujudihi وهما على وزان ركوع القائم في محاذتي. So basically, like what they're saying is that if someone is standing, right, and they ruku', right, so where their face comes to, that is where you should push your head to, right, when you want to ruku', to push your head to that point, and then for sujud to go all the way as far as you can. So sujud is as far as you can. For ruku', come up to your knees, right, if you are seated down. Okay, if one is unable to sit, right, then he may pray lying down. And that is how our religion shows us the importance of prayer. No matter what, if you can pray, you must pray. Even if it means lying down, lie down lah. Right, lie down and pray. Right, so then if one is unable to sit, right, he may lie down sideways on his right, on his left. Lying on the right side is more preferred. Right? If one is still unable to lie sideways, then he should lie down flat and lift or bend slightly his head with something to ensure his face is facing the Qibla. Right? So if you're on your side, then again to bend your head with ruku' and sujud, to always ensure that you bend more for sujud than ruku'. If you're unable to lie sideways, you lie down flat on your back, right? If a pillow propped up behind you to lift your chest up, so your chest is facing the Qibla. What is important is that the chest is facing the Qibla. For sideways, you're on your right, your chest is towards the Qibla, your feet is 90 degrees from the Qibla. For on your back, your feet is towards the Qibla. And your feet is pointing towards the Qibla, because your chest, what is important in the prayer is the chest must point to the Qibla. Right, the chest must point to the Qibla. As if you're on your back, so naturally your feet will point towards the Qibla lah. Right, because you're trying to get your chest to point towards the Qibla. So always understand, if you get confused, always remember that no matter what, the chest must point to the Qibla. So if I'm on my side, for my chest to point to the Qibla, that means my feet is pointing 90 degrees away from the Qibla. Right, 90 degrees on this side, because my chest towards the Qibla. Right, but if on my back, then obviously my feet is pointing towards the Qibla. Right, because my chest needs to point towards the Qibla. Right, so his face is facing the Qibla, and what is more important is the chest that is facing the Qibla. If he's able to move his head for bowing and prostration, he should move so, bending more for prostration than bowing. So if he can move his head. If he's unable to bend his head, maybe he's paralyzed, may Allah protect us from that, then he can do his actions by blinking his eyes to show that he's doing his ruku' and his sujud. If he's even unable to move his eyes, he cannot open his eyes at all, his eyes are closed, right, then he can just do everything in his mind, in his heart, and he can do the prayer inside of himself. Right, so you can imagine the movements of the prayer and do the recitation of the prayer in his heart. Which is why if you know someone, who is in coma, or they are brain dead, or they're just not responsive, then every prayer do an azan for that person in iqama, and every prayer do the wudu for that person, and inform that person in case that person has some consciousness which you can't perceive. Right? So in case that individual has a consciousness that you cannot perceive, you will say to the individual, oh fulan, ya fulana, it's Zohor right now, I'm going to azan for you. You speak to that person and you azan. Then you say, okay, I'm going to wudu for you. Okay? So you say, I'm going to wash your face, do your niyat, please, do your intentions, and you do the wudu for that person. And then you can say, okay, now you are ready, and I've covered your aura for you. Now you are ready to pray. So if the person is completely unresponsive, cannot at all, you just do this in case they still have a consciousness in their head, right? They still have a consciousness, so therefore they are able to pray because you have prepared them for the prayer. But if they are unconscious, it's okay. And because if they're unconscious, then they are not responsible for the prayer because they are unconscious. Okay, right. So one who is capable of standing can perform the recommended prayer sitting down or lying down sideways, but is not allowed to lie down flat. But so if let's say if you are not sick, nothing's wrong with you, just don't want to get up, you're lazy. Just want to or you're tired after a full day of work, don't want to stand up, but you don't want to miss out on the reward of praying sunnah after Isha. You just like you want to get the reward. Okay, fine. So you go and get the reward, you go and pray the sunnah of Aisha, but you're like so tired. So you just sit down and pray. Permissible. If you're really very tired, go and lie down and pray. But make sure you don't sleep lah. You lie down on your right and you fall asleep. But make sure you don't actually fall asleep. But on the back, not permissible, eh? No matter what, you cannot lie down on the back unless you have a medical reason. Okay. So he has to sit during bowing and prostration. So if the one is lying down on their side and just praying sunnah and having no reason why they're on their side, they have absolutely no. They can stand, they can sit. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just very tired or very lazy, whatever they are, right? So when they want to do the sujood and ruku', they must sit back up and they must ruku' and they must sujood. Okay. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. The one who is praying standing gets full reward. The one who is praying sitting, a sunnah, sitting with no reason, gets half reward. The one who's praying lying down with a sunnah and they have no reason why they're lying down gets 1/4 the reward. 1/4, eh? I say, thinking to yourself, if you're going to spend that kind of time to do sunnah, stand lah. At least get full reward, Don't shortchange yourself. Right? But of course, then again, you say to yourself, but if I stand, I won't do it. I'll just get 0 reward. Then okay lah, then sit down lah. Then at least gets half instead of 0. And then when you're doing half, you're like, why am I being lazy? Stand lah, get full. And then you encourage yourself lah. Okay. The reward for praying recommended prayers is half, as I mentioned, and lying down is half as compared to sitting, meaning 1/4. Okay, that is the conditions of or that is the that is the issues of praying while sitting down and lying down. We're going to the next integral, which is Fatiha. So reciting Fatiha, except for the one who is excused to him excused due to him being a masbuq or other reasons. Reciting the basmala and the tashdid contained in it are all part of the Fatiha. Right, so you must recite the Fatiha with its tashdid and saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. That is part of Surah Fatiha. To do all the tashdeeds, to do all the shaddas, it's wajib part of Surah Fatiha. Right, so if you miss out any shaddas, it means you have missed out an entire letter in Surah Fatiha, which means your Fatiha is not complete. Right, so if someone were to recite Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, that's wrong because there is no shadda on the ya. It's Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Iyaka. Right? Shadda on the ya. Now, if someone were to recite Bismillahir Rahman, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, for example, there is no shadda on the ra. Right? Sinful. Sinful. The Fatiha is not correct. Right? So get the shaddas in, count your shaddas, make sure you're doing your shaddas properly as part of the Fatiha. Okay, so the Fatiha is compulsory on everyone who is praying. So whether you're imam or you're ma'mum or you're praying by yourself, the Fatiha is wajib on you to recite. And because it's a rukun qawli, it is an integral that is verbal, you must be able to hear yourself. Right? The only person that the Fatiha is not compulsory on is the masbuq. And what is the masbuq? The definition of the word masbuq is a person who enters the prayer and did not have enough time to recite Fatiha. That is the definition of masbuq. Okay, a person who enters the prayer after the imam and did not have enough time to recite the Fatiha, not because the imam is slow, or not because the imam is too fast or because he's too slow, but the reason why he has not enough time to recite Surah Fatiha is because he came in late. Okay, so that is the masbuq. I also remember the masbuq. I'm going to write it down. And we've gone through this before. It's all revision from Safina. Alhamdulillah for revision. Okay, this is why we do books step by step, right? Because it will reinforce what you have taken in Safina. You're forced on revision when you do books over and over, one after another. All right, so masbuq, right? What is masbuq, right? Basically, right? Someone, right, who enters the prayer, right? Who enters the prayer, um, at standing or ruku, at standing or ruku, and did not or was not able to lie, was not and was not able to finish Fatiha because or due to his lateness, like due to his lateness, right? Lateness in joining. Okay, due to his lateness in joining the prayer, lateness. All right. So not due to Imam being too fast, nor due to you being too slow, but due to you being late. All right. So, and this is a very, very standard, it's like an all encompassing, all comprehensive definition, right? So if someone were to come in the prayer and the Imam has finished Fatiha and the Imam is in fact right now reciting a surah, if this Imam is reciting a long surah, are you counted as a masbuq? The answer is no, you are not a masbuq, right? Because you are able to recite a full Fatiha. The Imam is reciting a long surah. Right? So the Imam is reciting the entire Surah Baqarah, for example, or a full juz in Tarawih. And you come into the prayer and like you have like a good 10 minutes to get your Fatiha in. You're not masbuq. You must get your Fatiha in because you're able to get your Fatiha in. You must get your Fatiha in. Right. So however, so that is the, but so for example, if you come in and the Imam just finishes Fatiha and he began reading Surah Asr. Right, so you begin to start your Surah Fatiha, but by the time you're halfway through, the Imam ruku already. Right? Are you masbuq? Yes, you are masbuq. You do not have enough time to recite Surah Fatiha. This is important because the Imam carries your Fatiha. So if you can understand, am I masbuq or not? If you can understand that you are masbuq, then you can leave your Fatiha for the Imam to carry and continue praying and follow the Imam in ruku'. All right. So, like for example, someone comes into, but you must begin with Fatiha straight away. Okay, you must begin with Fatiha straight away because you are masbuq, and that is also why you need to be able to get the Imam in ruku' for the level of tumanina. You must be able to get the Imam in ruku' for a level of tumanina, level of subhanallah. All right. So I'm going to give a few scenarios. All of these I've gone through with you in Seven Najah, right? All of this I've gone through in detail in Seven Najah. Right now, all I'm doing is revision. Right, that's why I'm just saying stuff. I hope that it all jogs your memory of what we have spoken about all in Safina to Najah. All right. So a few scenarios. Okay, first scenario, you are in the prayer, you join the prayer, right at the beginning with the Imam. Okay, so you're not late. See, you're not late in joining the prayer. So therefore, there is no status of masbuq for you. You were not late in joining the prayer. You were there in the prayer from the beginning. The Imam takbir, you takbir. You takbir right after the Imam. Okay. So the Imam finished Fatiha, you listen to the Imam. Then after the Fatiha, the Imam begins to recite Surah Asr. All right. Oh, you like Surah Asr. So you begin to recite Surah Fatiha after the Imam. Okay, the Imam finishes Surah Asr, the Imam ruku'. You are still halfway through Fatiha. You cannot leave your Fatiha because you are not masbuq. Right? You were there from the beginning. Right? So you're not a latecomer. Right? So you don't have a definition, you don't have the status of masbuq. So you can't leave your Fatiha, you must finish your Fatiha. And because you're not masbuq, you don't actually have to get the Imam in his ruku' because you're not masbuq. Only the masbuq needs to get the Imam in his ruku', right, for tuma'nina. You're not masbuq. You have to finish your Fatiha. Right? But you are ma'azur. Right? Ma'azur means you have an excuse. Right? Because the Imam's too fast. He's way too fast. Right? He reads Surah Asr so fast and he's already into ruku'. And he's going to intidal soon. Right? So you're like, okay, I haven't even finished my Surah Fatiha. So you're given up to the third long rukun. Right? Third long rukun is basically second sujud. Right, so you're given up the third long rukun to catch up with the Imam. Right, so you read Surah Fatiha, the Imam ruku'. The Imam Sami Allahu liman hamida. You're still in Fatiha. Continue your Fatiha. The Imam Allahu Akbar into sujud. You're still in Fatiha. Continue your Fatiha. Finish your Fatiha faster. Finish your Fatiha. So the Imam gets up from sujud. Allahu Akbar, sits down. You're still doing Fatiha. Okay. The Imam sujud. Second sujud. Okay, you need to start moving before the Imam gets up. Okay, so you should, if by now you're still in Surah Fatiha, then you miss a rakaat. You miss the whole rakaat. Okay, so you need to finish your Fatiha and Allah Akbar, you ruku' and take every movement with tuma'nina. Tuma'nina only and move on. So ruku' tuma'nina, subhanallah. I'tidal, sami Allah liman hamida, rabbana lakal hamd, ruku' sujud, and try and catch up with the Imam. Every movement you do a tuma'nina only. Okay. Alright, that is if the Imam is too fast or you are too slow. Right? So somebody who is a new convert, someone not used to this, right? Fatiha very slow. Right? So the Imam is not too fast, but you are too slow. You're also given till the third long rukun, which is the second sujud. Okay, you come into the prayer, you're late. You're late into the prayer. Right? But you're late into the prayer, you come into the prayer, you're late into the prayer, but the Imam is still in Fatiha. So you were not there from the beginning. You came a bit late, but when you came into the prayer, the Imam just finished Walang Dhalin. Amin. And you came in. So technically you're in the same position as the one who was there from the beginning. Right? You're in the same place. And because at that point in time, both of you are going to start your Fatiha. So that means you're not masbuq. You are not masbuq. Okay? You are still someone who has gotten the prayer as it is, right? Because you came at the end of Surah Fatiha. Okay, if you came into the prayer, you have no idea where the Imam is. It's a silent prayer. Okay, silent prayer, or or the Imam has been reciting, and you can hear the Imam is coming to the end of the surah. It's a long surah. He's coming to the end of the surah. So you come to the prayer, you are masbuq. You are late. Right, to the prayer, you begin Allahu Akbar. And you begin straight away into Surah Fatiha, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and you go right into Surah Fatiha, the Imam ruku'. Right? So because you are a masbuq, Imam carries your Fatiha, you can stop your Fatiha, and you should stop your Fatiha and ruku' because you must get the Imam in your ruku'. Okay. If you are, again, the same situation, if you enter the prayer late, right, and the Imam just about to finish his surah, you enter the prayer, and then you go and busy yourself in reciting what is sunnah. So you busy yourself in reciting Allahu Akbar kabira, alhamdulillahi kathira, or you busy yourself saying A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Right, so you busy yourself doing what is sunnah, and you do not go into the wajib straight away. Right, in doing this, right, you have now taken up time that could have been used for Fatiha, you use it for Sunnah. Right, so therefore, when you begin reciting Surah Fatiha, you must recite Surah Fatiha enough to cover the time that you took to read the Sunnahs. Okay? Right, so if you have read the entire of Dua Iftitah, then that would require you to read the entire Surah Fatiha. If you had read just A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim, that would be equivalent to about one more ayat in Surah Fatiha, right? So if you are in Surah Fatiha, right, and the Imam ruku', right, and you are like Maliki Yawmiddin, right, and you had done A'udhu Billah from before. So you have done A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim from before, and you at Maliki Yawmiddin, Imam ruku'. You need to continue. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. Stop. Okay, one ayat enough. And then ruku' with the imam. Right? Because you spend time saying A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim earlier on. Okay, had you spent time reading Dua Iftitah earlier on, then you must finish Fatiha. Dah, must finish. Because you spent too much time early on the Sunnah, you must finish. If you don't get the Imam in ruku' for a level of Tumatnina, meaning Imam in Tumatnina, you in Tumatnina, both of you together in ruku' for the level of Subhanallah. That means the Imam is not moving upwards. He's not getting back up while you're moving down. You're both in ruku' together for a level of Subhanallah. Then you got the raka'at. However, in you trying to finish Fatiha, the Imam moves up and you have not gotten the Imam in ruku' for Tumatnina. Then therefore, you missed the raka'at, like how a mazbuk comes in after ruku'. So you're like a mazbuk who comes in after ruku'. You missed the raka'at. The raka'at not counted for you. You continue following the imam. Yes, you continue following the imam, but the raka'at's not counted for you. Okay, a mazbuk who came in after ruku'. Alright. Okay, that's the part about Fatiha. Let me go on. Right, so one should not replace dha with dha, right? And that is a common problem lah. A question. Nice question. Mm. Cannot hear the imam eh. Or you should be able to hear the imam's takbir. So from a takbir you can tell. Takbir you can tell whether the imam is, because the movement of the imam and the movement of the person in front of you might not be the same. It might be a bit later. Yeah. So the imam, which is why for the imam he should be doing a takbir the moment he moves. So when you're about to Allah Akbar go down, right? You hear from the PA system Allah. That means imam dah gerak. Imam already move and he already stand. He is standing back up. Right? So it should be the imam should announce it and his movements. So it shouldn't be that the imam move first and then takbir. That one makruh. He shouldn't be moving like he move first and he Allahu Akbar. No, he should takbir the moment he moves to help the makmum know when he's moving, and his takbir should end when he ends moving. It's a sunnah, sunnah for the imam. So the moment he begins to move, to begin the takbir, the moment he ends the movement, to end the takbir. Okay. All right. ولا يصح إبدال الظاء عن الضاد ويشترط عدم اللحن المخل بالمعنى. I should not replace الظا with ضا, الظا with ضاد. I guess some people do that lah. Right, so they'll sing walau dhalin. They say walau dhalin. It goes za. So maghzubi. Maghzubi. Wrong. Maghdubi. Right, so maybe there are people out there who actually replace the letters. In our society, it is more of people replacing ha and the ha. I sing Alhamdulillah. They say Alhamdulillah. Right? Or and Right? So so Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Right? So many people go Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Right? So all the they're being replaced with al-muwala, al-muwala continuity, and the Fatiha if it's broken, if one were to intentionally remain silent for a long period of time. And so if someone stops the Fatiha, on purpose, by remaining silent, they have to redo the Fatiha. So if or remaining silent as there is an intention to break the session, or with remembrance or zikr. Except if he forgets, and except when it is recommended prayer to make remembrance such as saying Ameen or Ta'awuz, or asking for mercy, prostration or recitation because of Imam recitation, and to remind the Imam. So these are the only ways, the only reasons by which someone can break their Fatiha. So basically, with the Fatiha, it is you are not to interrupt your Fatiha except for, okay, you are not to interrupt your Fatiha except for, like a rabi', you're not into Fatiha except for first one, right? To say Amin. Okay? To say Amin to an Imam. Alright, so you're wondering why is it that I'm saying Amin when I'm doing Fatiha? Would that mean that I'm doing Fatiha while the Imam is doing Fatiha? Possible. Possible. Maybe you ended the prayer, the Imam is reading Surah Fatiha, and then you just like absentmindedly read your own Surah Fatiha. Because technically, if the Imam is doing Amin, and you are stopping your Fatiha reading to say Amin with the Imam, that means you're halfway through Fatiha lah. Kan? Why else would you be reading Fatiha then? It means you're doing Fatiha while the Imam is doing Fatiha for some reason. Right? So maybe you're just absent-minded lah. Right? So you're reading إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين, and the Imam goes Amin. You're like, okay, the Imam goes Amin. So you go Amin with the Imam, and you continue Fatiha. Permissible, your Fatiha is not cut off. Permissible. Or you're doing Fatiha and the Imam is doing a prostration. Right, so the Imam is reciting Surah Iqra, and then he ends the Surah, and you are doing Fatiha while the Imam is doing Surah Iqra. Right, so the Imam is doing Surah Iqra, Surah Alaq, and you are still doing Fatiha. So you are like Sirat alladhina an'amta alayhim, and the Imam goes Allahu Akbar, indicating that sujud time to sujud, right? Because ayat sujud, right? You stop your Fatiha or you pause your Fatiha and you go and sujud with the Imam, and you come back up and you can continue from where you left off. Right, so your Fatiha is not broken. Right, so basically, so all acts of remembrance that are recommended in the prayer. Or for example, the Imam is reciting Surah At-Tin, right? And you are reading Surah Fatiha. So while you're doing Surah Fatiha, you're going Sirat alladhina an'amta alayhim, and the Imam recites أليس ذلك, أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين. There is a sunnah response, بلى ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين. Right, so you can pause and you can respond to that. بلى ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين. Right, so even though you're doing Fatiha halfway, you can pause and you can respond to the Imam's recitation. Okay, or if the Imam is making a mistake in his recitation and you are halfway through Fatiha, you can actually remind the Imam. Right, so if the Imam goes اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق the Imam forgot. It's just like really multitasking. Like focus on your Fatiha, try and get Fatiha, at the same time hearing the Imam, and then the Imam made a mistake, and you like can correct the Imam and then do your Fatiha again, mashallah. Like juggling a few things going on. You want to read Surah Fatiha while the Imam is reading Surah, already you cannot focus. Right, then it's like you're hearing the Imam, you're doing your own Fatiha. But I know people who are like that. They can be reciting their own Quran and hear somebody else recite Quran, and they can correct that person and continue their recitation from memory, not even from Mushaf, from memory. They can be doing that. Allah gives them ability, some sort of like superhuman, mashallah, like superhuman, mashallah, ability to actually do this, mashallah. So if someone is able to do that, and you hear the Imam stuck at an ayat or recite something wrong from the ayat, then you can actually pause your Fatiha and you can correct the Imam. I cried the Imam and then okay, continue your Fatiha. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. See if I missed out anything, Okay, so only things that are sunnah to do in the prayer, that you're allowed to use these things, you're allowed to do these things and then interrupt your Fatiha for a while and come back to the Fatiha. Right? Only things that are sunnah to do in the prayer. Naam. Okay. All right. So then number 5 is bowing, and its minimum is to bend. وأقله أن ينحني حتى ينال راحته ركبتيه. So it is bowing, and the minimum is to bend until both palms of the hands can reach both knees. ويشترط أن يطمئن بحيث تستقر أعضاؤه وأن لا يقصد به غيره. It is required for you. So now comes the conditions of ruku'. Right, and we've gone through this before in Safinatin Najah. Right, so a revision of that, of the conditions of wudu, of the conditions of ruku'. Right, it is first and foremost with all parts of the prayer. The conditions of it is that standard conditions. The standard ones is that, and you should be able to rattle off. Right, so the standard conditions of every part of the prayer before you go into specific conditions. The standard general conditions. First one is what came before is valid. Right, the action that came before this action is valid. So for your ruku' to be valid, your standing must be valid. Okay. Second general condition is that you intended to do that action. You must have intended to do that action as you move into it. You don't have to actually say in your heart what you are doing, but you shouldn't be intending anything else. So for example, if someone's praying and then like the enemy comes and the enemy is looking for them and they're standing, right? So they quickly ruku', right, to hide from the enemy. So their ruku' is not part, they're not intending to ruku' for the salat, but they are doing ruku' because they're trying to hide from the enemy. And that's a different thing. Okay, or someone's in sujud and then they felt something crawl over their hand, for example, like some animal crawl over their hand. So they set up, because of shock. Of shock, they set up, and then like, okay, I'm already up, might as well sit up. But them moving up to sit up is not because they intended it, but it's because they got a shock and they moved up. Right, so they need to go back to their position and then come back up. Right, so the condition that the previous action must have been valid before the next action, and that when you do the next action you must have intended to do it. It means you must have wanted to do it. Qasad, right? And then so these are the two general ones for every part, for every movement in the prayer. Then you have specific ones. So for example, for bowing specifically, right, you need to you must look straight down to the ground. It's haram to actually look up, right? To bend your head up and to look up. Right? Condition of ruku' also, your palms must be able to reach your knees. They don't actually have to be touching your knees, but they need to be able to. Your hands, your palms need to be able to reach your knees. Right? That is the condition of ruku'. Right? So and then to hold it for tuma'nina, right? Hold the position for tuma'nina, so don't go too quickly. Right? And do it Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Right? So if someone were to bend, right? So if one's about to go down with the intention to perform position of recitation, and then he instead makes it into his bowing, it does not suffice. So for example, someone is reading Surah Alaq. So reading Surah Alaq, they come to the sujud ayat. They think to themselves, okay, sujud ayat must sujud. So Allahu Akbar, they're going to sujud. Right? But halfway through, they think to themselves, Allah, I don't want to sujud. Let's ruku'. I want to finish my rakaat. Right? Can, because sujud is sunnah. So, but they already began moving, intending to do sujud tilawah. Right? They actually intended sujud tilawah. But while they're moving and they're not reached sujud, they're just halfway through, they're thinking, ruku' lah, let's ruku' and then let's finish rakaat lah. Sudah. Right? This is, in the sense, they did this intended. So they ruku'. Right? Is it counted? No, because the very movement was for sujud, not for ruku'. Right? So they cannot do that. Right? They need to get up and then need to ruku' again if that is how they want to do it. Alright? Okay. Okay, so we finished up to page 68. Inshallah, next lesson we'll do until 6. So I'm going through quickly because you've done most of it already in Najah. And any further questions if you have, you can ask me, inshallah. It's good revision lah. It's very good revision. A lot of stuff. Makes your fiqh very, very strong. Inshallah. Okay, any questions? Okay, there are no questions. Barakallahu feekum.